Welcome, everybody. Wednesday, August 23rd. John Arvosis here with the Arvosis Report, coming to you with the latest news from Ukraine, and today, especially the latest news from Russia, where it appears, except I'm going to get into this in a minute, why I say appears, that Vladimir Putin's one-time good friend and recently arch nemesis, Yevgeny Prigozhin, was just killed by Putin. Maybe. Let me get TikTok rolling here on my iPad. We'll take a minute to say hello. And then we'll get rolling with the news. But that's our big story. We've got a couple other stories too, but that's the big story we're going to talk about today. So here we go. Boom. Anyway, hello all. What an interesting news day. I'm glad I didn't go out for the afternoon. Hey, Amanda. Hey, everybody. Whew. Very interesting day. We expect many Russian trolls today trying to spin the news. So we shall see. Whew. Anyway. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, no, I'm definitely not surprised it happened, but still very interesting. Oh, anyway. Hey, guys. Hey, TikTokers. How are we all doing? Everybody do the where you're from thing. Always fun. Thank you, B. Smith, because you never know. We get new people sometimes. Thank you, Kankarangan. Your name always cracks me up. Whew. Anyway, yeah, busy news day today, guys. So we're going to have fun today. Very interesting discussion, really, about what all this means. Thank you, Lee, for the gift on TikTok. And user 3367 and Tattooed Mom. So many gifts. And Nick and Succeed. Everybody, thank you for all the gifts. Oh, and Succeed again, maybe. Oh, Crafty and Tomcat and Charles. Boy, everyone's like on a roll today. Thank you, guys. Oh, and the heart. Who was the heart? Oh, Charles was the heart. Yep. And the roses and B. Smith and Tattooed and very cool little seashore from Tattooed, I think. God, you guys are like out of control today. B. Smith, the elephant from Ellie. Thank you, guys. Big Hawk. You're on a roll. See what happens? A top Russian gets killed. And look at you. You're all giving me gifts. Thank you, John and Gino. Elizabeth. Woo. Thank you, Flower Lady. Boy, busy. It is a crazy news day today. I mean, not busy, but just busy for this one story, obviously. There's a couple other good stories, too. Actually, today is a great news day for Ukraine. So that'll be fun. Hello, Gothenburg. And thank you, Happy Beach and Gaia. Ooh, who else is there? Sir Goose Adventures. So many gifts on TikTok. Thank you, guys. Very much appreciate it. Happy Beach again. Adventures. Anyway, thank you, Mark. We'll take another half minute or so and then get rolling here. Hey, Ireland. Thank you, Eva. Lance. And who is that? Kara? Oh, Kara? Kara? I always forget. I think it's Kara. I never quite know. Whew. Hey, Scott in England. Anyway, yeah, very crazy day today. Very crazy day today. Is he really dead? That's the question. That's the big question. So we're going to talk about that. Thank you, Nicola. All right, guys, we can get rolling. I think we can get rolling. Don't let that stop you from giving gifts. But hey, Danielle and Super Hornet and Nick. Very nice one there, Nick. Thank you. So anyway, welcome, guys. Today is day 545 of Vladimir Putin's special military operation in Ukraine, the 3-day special military operation. Thank you, Marcy, JVS3. Very interesting day today. Thank you, Artur. As I said at the start of the show, sort of before some of you may have arrived, we are going to have a long discussion about, thank you, Dawn, about Putin apparently having his top rival killed today, or current top rival. Whether that's the case, let's see. I think there's a 95% chance Prigozhin is dead, but let's talk about it. I guess I'll start by saying, it's Happy Ukrainian Flag Day. And tomorrow is Ukrainian Independence Day. So very interesting on that front, just to have like good news. It is a very good news day. I have no bad news today to give you. I've got only good news. So let's dive in, guys. Again, I said a lot of the news is going to be about this Prigozhin news. So the big story today, a couple hours ago, we start hearing news, thank you, Elizabeth, that a plane was shot down, thank you, Adam, leaving Moscow, about maybe 100 miles, I don't know whether it was, northwest of Moscow, leaving Moscow, shot down by Russian air traffic, what do you call them, anti-air missiles. They think it was an S-300, not sure, and blown out of the sky. One wing gets blown off the plane. The plane comes, well, kind of not even spiraling down. I think it just kind of went down because we all saw that video that was out there. Either it was the plane pointing down or the wing remaining pointing down. Not happy. Crashed down. Everybody died. 10 people on the plane, 7 passengers, 3 crew. Now, what gets interesting about this is one of the passengers on the list was Yevgeny Prigozhin. He's the guy who tried to overthrow Putin 2 months ago, actually 2 months ago to the day, today. He is also the guy who is an oligarch, well, was maybe billionaire, was a big friend to Putin before he became a big enemy of Putin, very critical of, well, we'll get into sort of his background here. But the question now, I mean, first question is he dead? Thank you, Tattooed Mom. We don't know. We don't know. And what I say is, I mean, and I had a little bit of I think he's dead. I think he's dead, but we don't know. And I had actually, that's true. Yeah, his top deputy was killed too. Utkin. Was it Dimitri? Oh, I've got it written down. I forget his first name of the deputy, but it's Dimitri. Yes, Dimitri Utkin, who was his top deputy. We're going to talk about him in a second too. Here's the deal. Until you see a body, we can't trust Russian news. And currently we are trusting the Russian media, which is an extension of the Russian government. Thank you, Pam. And remember what I always tell you guys, the Russian government lies. They lie about literally everything. I mean, it's insane, right? So we can't really trust them saying he was on the plane. Now, Prigozhin's own people have come out and said he was on the plane and died. I will say this. I think it's a little weird. Now, we've seen other people be really stupid, but stupid man. Right? I mean, he went on the plane. He even signed his name that he was on the plane, right? So Putin knew he was on the plane. You're kind of asking to get blown up. I mean, everybody knew Putin was going to kill this guy eventually, right? We all knew that Putin was going to kill him. It just seems you'd be a little more careful about it than just putting your name in the, in the list of people on the plane, right? It just seems a little weird to me. There is, I think, a 5% chance that Prigozhin is faking this and that he wasn't on the plane. Put the name there so Putin would think it was blown out of the sky, and then either your followers put out a message saying you're dead to cover it up, or you fool your followers for right now. I think, as I said, 95%. I think he's dead. Putin, again, the Russian government says they discovered the bodies, all 10 bodies, but again, the Russian government lies. So who knows what they discovered, right? Thank you, Tattooed Mom. I do think we should probably assume he's dead. He was in Africa. Yeah, he was in Africa yesterday. He reportedly just came back today from Africa. So that kind of makes sense, right? Right? I mean, the story fits there. Thank you, Pedro. There were reports that there were 2 planes, right? And that one plane got shot down and the other plane either landed or turned away or did something. Both were planes sort of owned by the Wagner Group. Is it a little weird that he's flying around with his top deputy and they're flying together? I mean, if you're afraid of getting blown out of the sky by Putin, it's a little weird. If you aren't afraid of getting killed, then it's not weird because you do business on the plane. But of course, Prigozhin should be, I mean, Putin kills people. Everybody knew he was going to eventually get killed by Putin, or at least basically he would either get killed by Putin or he would overthrow Putin. Now, real quick, Timothy O'Malley has a super chat question saying, are we going to see another coup attempt? We could. Let me get a little bit into this, and I will get into that with sort of what I'm talking about what this means for Russia. Thank you, Suzanne. I first wanted to mention, because this is an important point that we shouldn't overlook. Prigozhin's top deputy, this Dmitry Utkin guy, he's the guy that actually runs the Wagner Group, the mercenary group that tried to overthrow Putin. But also, I should say, in case anybody's new here, also a very effective mercenary group that was fighting in Ukraine for Putin. He also fights in they fight in Mali for they're soldiers for hire, guns for hire. So the government of Mali has hired them. Syria is paying them. They fight for anybody anywhere, but as an extension of basically Russian foreign policy. Well, the number 2 guy who runs Wagner Group day to day, who was killed as well, we believe, he's or was a lieutenant colonel in Russia's GRU, which is their military intelligence, was deployed twice to Chechnya. Now, mind you, okay, lieutenant colonel, big position in Russian military intelligence. He's a big deal. This guy had Nazi tattoos. He had swastika tattoos. Thank you, Adam. Swastika tattoos, SS tattoos. This guy was a Nazi, and he was a top colonel in Russian military intelligence. Okay, this is the thing that drives me crazy when the Russians talk incessantly about the Ukrainians being Nazis. The Russians are the Nazis. The Russians are the ones that have no problem working with the Nazis. I mean, literally, he's got swastika tattoos. In any normal military, thank you, Carol, would this guy get promoted? Right? But in Russia, especially, where Russia likes to pretend like, oh, they were the big folks opposing the Nazis in World War II, right? Thank you, Deanna, right? They love to talk about that. Why would they promote a Nazi? But they did. And they knew he was, everyone knows this guy has these tattoos. It's not hard to verify, right? Putin didn't care. Putin didn't care. So that's one thing right there that I just find fascinating, and it's so telling that Putin loves Nazis. He loves using Nazis. He used them to go after the LGBT community about 10 years ago. That was a story I worked on a lot. He's using them now to go after the Ukrainians. Putin loves Nazis. The Russians love Nazis. They have no problem with them. So again, we should always be pushing this back in their face. Sky Queen says, is Prigozhin dying good news for Ukraine, or does it matter? Let me throw that in with this part here, okay? With the sort of good news, bad news, how this fits in. Good news for Putin, it gets rid of a rival, right? Prigozhin tried to overthrow him. There was always the danger Prigozhin would do it again. So that's good for Putin, got rid of a rival. 2, it shows Putin strong. That's good for Putin, right? I mean, up until now, Putin, right? Remember the day of the rebellion, or the next day, what was it? That Putin basically put down the rebellion by saying, no, please meet with me. Let's have tea, right? And he promised Prigozhin all of these things. We think privately, he promised he was going to get rid of the Minister of Defense and the top general, and Prigozhin could go live in Belarus. But even Belarus, he didn't even go live in, right? He's been traveling around the world. He went to the conference in Russia last month. I mean, in St. Petersburg, right? So Putin was looking very weak. Putin was looking like if you try to overthrow him, he's going to freak out, negotiate, and you'll get away with it. So killing Prigozhin certainly sends a strong message, a stronger message than letting the guy live, right? And it sends the message to anybody who might challenge you, or anybody you work with, right? Or anybody of any power, even if you're super powerful and you've got your own military behind you, with Prigozhin did. Thank you, Charles. I could kill you, right? So that helps Putin. It weakens the Wagner group. You've just killed the top 2 guys running the Wagner group. It certainly weakens that group. That's good for Putin, because these guys could come after Putin, right? The bad part for Putin is he just killed the top 2 guys of the Wagner group and weakened the Wagner group. The Wagner group are some of Russia's best soldiers. They are war criminals, absolutely, but they're really good war criminals. They're very good at what they do, and they were some of Russia's only troops that knew what they were doing, like in Ukraine especially. Remember, the Wagner group are the guys that captured Bakhmut in eastern Ukraine. Not a strategically important town, but it's the only town the Russians have basically captured in a year of any size. Thank you, Nico. So it was a big deal for them that they got it. That was the Wagner group. By basically destroying, well, you've decapitated the leadership of this group, which is going to piss them off, demoralize them. It's going to make it harder to use Wagner in the future, if Putin wants to use Wagner in the future, right? Now, the question is, does he want to use Wagner? This is where it gets into sort of the messiness of, we weren't even sure why Prigozhin was permitted to live these 2 months, right? Because it seemed like Putin recognized all this. Wagner's strong, but Wagner's dangerous. Thank you, Stevie boy, right? Wagner can really help me with my foreign policy around the world, projecting our power in Africa, but Wagner's dangerous. They tried to overthrow me. They could do it again. So I think it's a negative for Putin. At the same time, it's a positive, right? That he's made Wagner weaker. 2, he's really pissed off the Wagner boys. They're pissed at him now. I guarantee you, these 20,000 Wagner troops, many of them are livid that Putin killed Prigozhin. Prigozhin's their guy. And more than Prigozhin, the number 1 guy, this Utkin guy who actually ran the Wagner group, you killed their leader. These guys are going to be pissed. Now, thank you, Tired Rabbit. What does that mean going forward? Who knows, right? As far as whether they're going to do any actual real damage, right, to Putin. But you've pissed off you've pissed off a very adept army of 20,000 men. That's interesting. This happened, I don't know, maybe 5-6 hours ago. You've pissed off the Wagner supporters in the public, right? Remember when the Wagner group invaded the town of Rostov in Russia, in southern Russia, off of Ukraine, and the people in the town welcomed them, right? I mean, literally, and especially after the coup, they were coming in the street to get selfies with the Wagner guys. The Wagner people had a lot of support in the Russian public, partially because they were successful, but partially because Prigozhin called out the bad guys in the Russian government. He said, our boys are getting killed because these guys don't know what they're doing. And that resonated with a lot of people. So you've now undercut Putin with a lot of the Russian public that liked Prigozhin. That's dangerous. That's what I've got on the good and bad there. Now, let me see real quick here. So Sky Queen said, and I'll get back to Timothy's too. Sky Queen says, is it good for Ukraine or does it even matter? I think it's good for Ukraine. I think it's good for Ukraine and it's bad a little bit, but it's probably more good than bad. These were some of the only effective troops that Russia has left. Putin's destroying them as we watch, right? So that's good for Ukraine because now you've just demoralized. You've either it shows that Putin is going to basically decommission the Wagner guys overall, or he's going to put them all in Africa, but he's certainly not going to use them in Ukraine, especially now that he killed the leader. And if he keeps them around, the Wagner guys, they're pissed. They lost their leader. He killed their leader. And he went back on a deal to kill the leader, right? Putin made a deal. He made a promise where he said he was not going to hold the Wagner guys responsible. He was going to give them amnesty, and he killed them anyway. I mean, so I think if you're Ukraine, that's great because you now have 20,000 really good troops who aren't going to be fighting nearly as well, if at all, anymore against you. It hurts Ukraine a little bit because it sows chaos and it also alleviates chaos, meaning Putin gets rid of a rival. So now potentially he can focus more on Ukraine than worrying about jockeying with his rival Prigozhin, whether Prigozhin will overthrow him, right? Having said that, does this solidify Putin's power or does it also create chaos? Because now you've killed these senior guys and their guys may come after you, right? So it's a little all over the place, but I think overall it's good for Ukraine because you've weakened Putin's big fighting force. That's what I would say. Are we going to see another coup attempt? Maybe. I mean, Putin has certainly been clamping down over the last, I don't know if it's 2 months, but maybe 6 weeks. Remember, we saw maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago that Putin was really significantly starting to clamp down, arresting people. This General Surovkin, who we just found out today, was basically fired. He was fired from his sort of Air Force command, whatever he was, and moved over to another part of the Russian Defense Ministry. This is the guy, Surovkin, who was a top Wagner ally. Thank you, AJ. That is a very nice gift. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. This is the guy who was a top Prigozhin ally in principle, this General Surovkin. He came out and denounced the coup when it happened, but he looked like it was a hostage video. Like he didn't look like he was sincerely denouncing the coup. He's the guy that then there were stories that Prigozhin went to him and told him that he was going to do the coup. And the question arose as to whether General Surovkin told Putin that he just found out there was going to be a coup. It looks like he didn't. He gets arrested by Putin. He's been under house arrest now for like 2 months, and he just got fired, right, from his big job. The interesting thing with Surovkin, though, so you've got Prigozhin, who's the guy running the only effective fighting force Russia has anymore, right, the Wagner Group, and he's gone in principle. You've also got Surovkin, who's the general who developed the defensive lines, like all of the defensive lines in southern Ukraine, what we talk about with the miles of minefields and trenches and this kind of stuff. It's called the Surovkin line because this guy was in charge of the war at that point, and he developed all of this. So, and by the way, it's apparently a very good defensive line, right? I mean, it's been hard for the Ukrainians to breach it. So it's kind of funny that the two guys who did the best in the war, this general, certainly with the defenses, and Prigozhin with the best troops, are now toast. I mean, just shows you sort of how screwed up Russia is, right? Wilson is asking, thank you, Wilson, as well. Is there anyone left at Wagner that could lead them to Moscow? What are the chances this backfires on Putin? Missed you. I don't know enough of the internal machinations of Wagner. My guess is if you had the one guy, again, Prigozhin was the figurehead. This Utkin guy was the actual guy leading it. If Utkin was leading it, he must have had deputies, right? You would have to have deputies, probably deputies in each country, meaning if you've got somebody in Mali, somebody's in charge of Mali, somebody's in charge of Syria, somebody's in charge of Ukraine, right? So he probably had top deputies in that area. He may have even had top deputies in other areas. Maybe he had a top deputy that dealt with the countries in Africa, or frankly, that dealt with all the other countries, and another deputy that dealt with Ukraine. So who knows what the structure was of Wagner? I mean, our CIA knows, right? I don't know. But if he had some top deputies that he empowered, then those guys still could take over. The problem is Wagner works for Russia now. They work for Putin, right? I mean, they always worked for Putin, but now they really do. So you take over Wagner if Putin wants you to take over Wagner. Thank you, Marino. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with them now. No, thank you, Charles. The other story I saw before coming on with you guys was there are reports that the Wagner guys are being, well, I don't want to say deported. Thank you, Laurie, but they're being they got put on planes to leave Belarus to go where? Who knows, right? I mean, it's a bit of chaos right now. As I said, I think this helps Putin in the short run. It certainly makes Putin look stronger, but at the same time, if you're Putin, this is very chaotic. It's very chaotic. Let me find a little more here. Oh, just a reminder. So, thank you, Arifa. Prigozhin was also the guy, thank you, Laurie, was also the guy that ran the Internet Research Agency. That's the folks in 2016 that attacked the American election. Thank you, Marcy. And very successfully. So that's kind of interesting too. Let me see here. Oh, here's another question. I'm not sure the answer to this, but why now? Right? Why didn't this happen 2 months ago? Why didn't this happen in 4 months from now? Thank you, Nick. Right? I mean, why now? I feel like Putin realized he made a mistake. Thank you, Pam. Now, okay, look. It's possible Putin planned this all along. Putin said, I'll just negotiate, get them to back down, and then in 2 months I'll kill them, right? That's possible. It still feels like Putin negotiating was weakness, and Putin in the last maybe month started turning things around. I was sort of thinking in my mind, thank you, not Jedrick and Bonnie. I was thinking in my head that it's, where else do you think? That it reminded me of like hurricanes and when the wall, or the eye wall, they call it, I guess. Thank you, Nick. It goes through a tightening cycle, an eye wall cycle, I think they call it, but basically where every 12 hours or whatever, it gets kind of weak and then it tightens up and becomes a really perfect circle. I feel like that's what was going on with Putin in the sense that maybe a month ago, replacement cycle, there you go. Maybe a month ago, suddenly Putin came out of his I'm afraid mode and became the old Putin dictator, awful murderer guy mode, right? And he suddenly started arresting people and this kind of thing and showing up in public and glad handing and everything else, and then caps it off by killing Prigozhin. So maybe, I guess if I had to say why now, I think it's because, as I said, Putin kind of pivoted from this weakness to strength and realizing he screwed up by negotiating with Prigozhin, that he had to basically kill the guy, and better to do it now than 6 months from now. Thank you, Kevin. But I'm still not really sure why he would sort of do it now and not previously. All right, that's what I've got right now for Wagner. Well, okay, I will answer that. Why not the CIA? If you mean why not the CIA, you mean could we have killed him? Well, thank you, Sean. Okay, look, it's possible. It's possible somebody else killed him too. It's possible. Thank you, Crazy American. Thank you, Sean. Was that Nick? Oh, Nick York. That's funny. At first I saw New York. That's very funny. It's possible somebody else killed. It's possible the Ukrainians killed him. Thank you, Mustard. It's possible some intelligence service killed him from around the world. I kind of feel, okay, again, I doubt it was us because active war and all that kind of stuff, right? But Biden, there's no way. Ukrainians certainly would love to kill him. Okay, there's the first point. Daniel mentioned a really good point. Not with S-300s. So the question is, if in fact this was a rocket that, thank you, AJ, a missile that came from the ground and blew up the plane, blew off its wings, then it had to be Russian. Well, it almost had to be Russian. I mean, it could be a Stinger missile, I guess, that somebody snuck into Russia, right? I mean, it's a little fanciful, right? If it was the plane, an explosion on the plane. Now, I have heard, I don't remember if anybody has saw a rocket in the sky. Witnesses have said they heard two explosions, two bangs. Okay. So they did hear that. Oops, the dog is the dog is sitting in her cat bed, her new cat bed. That's good. They did hear two explosions in the sky. Okay. But I didn't see reports that there was, a missile going at it from the ground or anything else. So I would say, like most of this story, I'd still be a little cautious on this. Who died? Oh my God, you're kidding. Yevgeny Prigozhin, Thank you, Bonnie. That's funny. Somebody just joined us and goes, "Who died, dude?" It looks like Putin blew up an airplane flying out of Moscow that carried Yevgeny Prigozhin, the oligarch who tried to overthrow him. Plane went down, killed everybody on board. That's what looks like happened. No independent confirmation by Western intelligence, which would be nice to have because you can't really trust the Russians, but it's the big story today that everyone's talking about because it sure seems that that's what happened. My microphone is still working, right? It kind of slipped on me a little. For you guys, I know it's working. For you guys on YouTube, make sure my microphone's still working. Just give me a yes, but I don't know if things are good because it was slipping in back, and I hate when it does that. What happens to Prigozhin's other businesses? Annie's asking as a super chat question. It is good. Okay, thank you, Metalium. Does Putin determine, or does Prigozhin have successors lined up? This is Russia. There's no way that it's funny. I like when the trolls use expressions they don't understand. A troll just posted on TikTok, "You're blindsided." And it's like, what? I don't think that word means what you think it means, blindsided. They probably mean blind or something, blindsided. Prigozhin's other businesses, this is Russia. This is Russia, right? So Prigozhin's businesses are still, in the end, going to be up to Putin. They're not controlled by Prigozhin. They're not controlled by his family, unless he had businesses incorporated outside of Ukraine. That's a different story, right? And I mean, he was a billionaire. He could have, right? But his main businesses are Russian businesses. The Wagner Group, it's a Russian business. The Internet Research Agency, depending on how it's even functioning now, it's a Russian business. So I think Prigozhin's, his will says zero about what's actually going to happen. It's up to Putin now. Just like Putin basically took over the Wagner. I mean, Putin was always kind of in control of the Wagner Group, but the Wagner Group, I think, got a little too much autonomy, and that's what finally really scared Putin. Anyway, let me do a quick. I'll do a quick pitch for my subscriptions, and then let's keep talking, guys. And I've got a couple other news stories to tell you that are great news stories. So I want to tell you, and then we'll keep talking about this Wagner thing, Prigozhin, because it's obviously a huge story. So actually, let me make sure. Didn't miss. Oh, I did. Sorry, real quick. I did have one more question for Bess Brannigan. What do the Russian bloggers think of the killing? From what I'm seeing, thank you, Jedamom. From what I've seen so far, there has been kind of mixed attitude and confusion. You've got to remember that the Russian military bloggers tend to be ultra nationalists. Thank you, Ellie. They tend to be ultra nationalists. So they're, it's hard to say far right in Russian terms versus the West, right? But they're far right nationalists, extremists. They support the war, and they think if anything, Putin hasn't executed the war strongly enough, right? So somebody like Prigozhin, who wanted to I think at one point, I remember reading once that Prigozhin said he thought it was a mistake that Russia didn't use nuclear weapons early on in Ukraine, right? Prigozhin has been complaining for months that the Ministry of Defense was too weak. The Minister of Defense was weak. The top general was weak. They didn't know what they were doing. The boys in the military were being hurt and killed. He even did videos showing their bodies and saying, "You killed these people." Because, right? So, I mean, this was ultra nationalism, so that the military bloggers typically would be supporting Prigozhin, you'd think. The problem is, one of their own got arrested a few weeks ago. I keep getting them mixed up. War Gonzo's the one that people were hoping was dead, but might be alive. And it's it's not Peskov. What's his name? Or Pegov. What's his Igor Girkin. I'm sorry, Girkin. Yeah, Girkin's the one. Yeah, Girkin was arrested. So Girkin's the military blogger who's also a war criminal for shooting down the Malaysian airliner back in like 2014 or so. But he is he was arrested by Putin for basically being too critical of Putin and too critical of the war effort. That put a chill on the other. Oh, and then one of Girkin's like friends, who's also a military blogger or whatever, shows up at a press conference to defend him, and they arrest him too. Thank you, Elizabeth and Dora, both. They arrest him too. So the military bloggers, the Russian military bloggers, got the message. Do not screw with Putin. This was another aspect, by the way, in the last month of Putin really like tightening things, finally saying, I'm not going to put up with this, this BS anymore, right? So the military bloggers kind of know to shut up at this point. There have been some people lamenting Prigozhin going, but it's been, at least from what I've heard briefly, I didn't look into it deeply, but I read some a little bit all over the place. I think it's basically just shock, because everyone thought he was going to kill him, but nobody thought he was going to do it this quickly, right? Oh, Mike has a good question. Where on the map did the plane go down? Very funny. I can't show you on the map because it was northwest of Moscow. I think it was about 100 miles, maybe 140 kilometers, 150 kilometers or something, northwest of Moscow. It had taken off from Moscow and then got shot down by the Russians. Well, most likely by the Russians, if in fact it was a surface to air missile. Let me tell you about my subscriptions really quick, and then we'll continue with the story. So as I told you guys before, one of the ways you can really support my work, which I appreciate, is just doing a monthly subscription. The gifts are great, very helpful, but the monthly subscriptions are nice too, because I don't have to kind of worry about how much money is coming in each month, because I do this full time. Very simple ways you can do it. On TikTok, you can become a TikTok subscriber right on the screen. The mods can tell you how. On YouTube, you can become a YouTube member. YouTube has memberships now where you become a member to a site or a creator like me, and you're able to give a monthly contribution. You can do that simply with the $ symbol at the bottom of the comment box. Click it. You'll see super chat, super question. Thank you, Andy. 2 of the ways you can help, and then memberships. And you can click it and see the various member levels. You can also be a member directly on our Discord. Any of these will give you Discord membership. Well, the TikTok one's a little goofy, but the other ones will give you Discord membership, but Discord itself has a way of doing it. And finally, there's Ko-fi. Ko-fi is another way that is, it's ko-fi.com/Aravosis. And it's another, I'm going to hide this a second. You guys can see it at the screen. It's another way that you guys can support my work with monthly contributions. You can find the Ko-fi link. You guys have it at the bottom. For you guys, go to my profile on TikTok, click the Linktree link, and the first thing that comes up is Ko-fi. Click it. Thank you, Ellen. And that's another way. All of those will get you access to my Saturday show, which is the show I do almost every Saturday morning, certainly this Saturday, only for paid subscribers as a thank you. So I do that. Usually Vlad beams in from Ukraine, and also lots of other exciting benefits like emojis and things. So please do, if you can, I'd appreciate it. So Lilia says, the Internet Research Agency was confiscated from Prigozhin after the coup. Ah, okay. Interesting. So that has not been his for 2 months now. Okay, interesting. Thank you for that. That's interesting. Okay. And then Eve Killer says, may as well ask, how does the Prigozhin death affect us in the West, if at all? That's a good question. I do accept donations through PayPal. You can go to my profile on TikTok, click the Linktree link, and my PayPal info is there as well. You'll find my PayPal, Venmo. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that. Does it affect us in the West? Honestly, I think it affects us in the West the same way it affects Ukraine, in the sense that it affects us a little bit more in some ways. The Wagner Group doing what it does in Africa, helping governments in Africa, like in Mali and other places, it's projecting Russian power. If the Wagner Group is getting weaker, they're going to do a worse job in Africa and Syria, and they're going to do not just less good job fighting, but less of a good job pushing Russia's interests. So from an American or a Western perspective, we like it if Russia's going to have a harder time projecting its influence in Africa and the Middle East. So that's good for the West. 2, it's going to make it harder. And then we share all the same benefits that Ukraine gets from this. You're apparently knocking out Russia's best fighting force, 20,000 men that are amazing fighters. You're screwing that up. You're not just getting rid of the 20,000 fighters. It seems like Putin is destroying the Wagner Group. These are also men who know how to train 20,000 fighters. So it's not just 20,000 fighters Putin might be getting rid of. He's getting rid of the people who can train another 20,000 fighters, right? Because they created it to start with. And they created really good fighters, murderers and war criminals, but very efficient killers, right? So that helps us because it helps Ukraine. So, and it depending what you believe on this, it potentially makes Putin more solidified in his power, because now he lost, as I said, one of his rivals, showed that he was strong. It potentially puts Putin in a stronger position right now in holding power. From the West, depends who you are, whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing. Some people in the West probably think it's better the devil we know, better the devil we know, right? Putin's a war criminal, but at least we know what he does, blah, blah, blah. We know how he acts. Whereas who knows who comes next? Some people would say he's a war criminal, get rid of him and let God worry about who comes next, right? So, good question. No, that's a good question. And Dark Irish, who we determined was a guy the other day. Many of your viewers are getting thirsty. I'm now colorblind. Oh, can you show the map so I can see what color it is? Asking for a friend, of course. Okay, 1 second. You're funny. You're funny. Yes, the map. Well, we haven't really needed to show the map. I did mention Bakhmut, which is up here. I also mentioned Rostov, which was the town that Prigozhin took down here in Russia. Thank you, Addie. More or less around here. So there, you get your little map. You're funny. You are funny. Funny boy. I'm on a roll today just because I've said this before, news is exciting if you do what I do for a living, right? Christine says, has this been confirmed? Excellent question, because it really hasn't. All this news is coming from the Russians. We've seen video of a plane going down that at least bears the resemblance to the kind of plane we knew Prigozhin had, right? We've seen, well, here's the thing. Prigozhin's own people came out and said he was on the plane, right? His people said he was on the plane, but, and I don't want to get all conspiracy, but I will say this. I think it's important to be accurate. And if you were the president asking me if he's dead, I would say we don't know. We believe he's dead, but we don't know. There's still some doubt because we've seen no evidence that he's dead. His men came out and said he's dead. But if I were Prigozhin and I were trying to hide from Putin, I would fake my own death. And by faking it, of course, you didn't know the plane was going to get blown down, but you know at some point Putin's going to do something. And I would say at some point, if it looks like I'm dead, go public and say I am dead, because then I can go hide and Putin won't know. Well, in principle. So to me, that means we don't know until Western intelligence, for example, Western intelligence is going to want to, they're going to want to talk to sources they've got inside Russia. They're going to want to listen to any kind of electronic intelligence, eavesdropping, wiretaps, etc., Russian cables, but basically internal Russian conversations to see if internally they talk amongst themselves, knowing he is dead. That will give us information. Thank you, Addie. I still think that, what's it? Is it Occam's razor or whatever? Or Spock had one of these too. But basically, the more likely scenario is the least complicated one. And the least complicated one is he was on the plane and Putin blew it up. The more complicated one is a little bit of machination, which is not far-fetched, though. Thank you, Dora. But there's, well, actually, final point is pretty much all the evidence we've got so far is the Russians. The Russians say they found 10 bodies. The Russians, I think, said they identified his body. Maybe, right? I mean, maybe. Right. Thank you, Brad. Proud nerd. Exactly. With my Star Trek. Right. But who knows? Thank you, Cami. But I think that's why you're also seeing a lot of the Western news sites that are talking about probably and likely and apparent, because they're not comfortable saying he's dead, because this is Russia. There's always a bit of a veil about what's really going on. Exactly. Glick is saying nothing coming out of the Soviet Union can be believed until it's independently verified, even though it's Russia, but it is still the Soviet Union in many ways. Thank you, Timothy. What else we got? Oh, actually, a couple more stories. I'm sorry, I was going to tell you. So, big Ukrainian intelligence coup today. Big deal. The Ukrainians, working with a Russian helicopter pilot, got a Russian helicopter pilot to defect, fly his Mi-8 helicopter into Ukraine territory, I think 100 miles or so, surrender it to Ukrainian authorities. The Ukrainians came out and said, yes, we negotiated the entire thing. This guy defected. We negotiated his defection. We negotiated him flying the plane in. We negotiated him killing his 2 other crewmates. It was 3 men working the helicopter, Russian military helicopter. It looks like he might have given the other 2 a choice to join, and they said no. We think killed them. And the Ukrainians ferried his family out of Russia. Who knows how they did it? Ukrainian intelligence got his family out of Russia and then successfully gave the guy coordinates to fly into Ukraine and blah, blah, blah. And he's alive. He's fine. His family's fine. And they got the family. And they got the plane or the helicopter. And the helicopter will go into service for the Ukrainians now. I believe it's a transport helicopter. I was Googling it. It's not clear. You guys tell me, the military guys and gals, but from what I was reading, it wasn't clear that this is such a big deal of a helicopter. It's like a transport helicopter, but, still nice. But very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. He flew like 100 miles into Ukraine. Exactly. Oh, thank you, Paul, to the music. That's the thing, right? If you eliminate, what was it? If you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable must be. You're right. That was the opposite of what I was saying. Not the opposite, but that was coming at it from the other direction. Right. Plane parts too. Yes, Oliver's correct. Supposedly he had plane parts inside of the helicopter as well. Oh no, amazing. And also getting his family out of Russia. Because also, by the way, he got a ton of money for doing this, because the Ukrainians have said, thank you, Marcy, from the beginning of the war, they offered specific amounts of money for helicopters versus planes versus ships versus tanks and this kind of stuff, right? MI8, you just wrote 28. I thought it was MI8. Is a transport, but can be outfitted with a light armament. It's older, but still effective. Okay. 500,000. Oh, was that confirmed, Brad, that they gave him 500,000? Is that confirmed? Very interesting if true. Very interesting if that's true. Yeah, MI8 is exactly. The other thing is, this tells other Russian soldiers that you can do this too. The Ukrainians will get your family out, which is huge. You will be given, potentially, from what Brad is saying, $500,000. Hell of a start, right? Now, mind you, the Russians will also try to kill you. This is what Russia does. Russia then follows you and tries to kill you, right? So there's that problem. But nonetheless, because also, by the way, I will say, it's in Putin's best interest to have these guys killed, because Putin needs to send the opposite message, which is, no, it is not in your interest, military men, to defect, right? Because I will have you killed. So Putin's going to do everything he can to kill these guys. Six Evo says, does Wagner have enough weapons to pursue a coup? I don't think so, only because a lot of weapons, at least the Wagner group in Ukraine, turned in a lot of their weapons. There were the reports right after the coup. There were a lot of reports of them turning in their weapons. So I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know what weapons. Clearly, the Wagner guys, like in Mali, have weapons, but they're in Mali fighting. The ones in Syria would have weapons, right? If they're still there. But I don't know that the guys, anybody remaining in Russia or anybody remaining in Belarus, for example, do they still have weapons? I don't know. Now, they were training in Belarus. They were training, so they needed weapons for training, surely, right? But I don't know. Let me look. Another story or two. Oh, this was another great story. And I couldn't, hold on. I think I've got the video here. Hold on. Because I sent it to I sent it to Callum. That's right. I will pull it up on my Signal. Ukraine blew up a hugely expensive Russian S-400 anti-aircraft battery in Crimea. So basically a location used for blowing up planes and drones and whatever. Very expensive, very I guess, advanced system. Ukraine, well, we think, I don't know whether we got an answer in the last hour or so. We think they used a missile to hit it, but then they used a drone to watch it being hit. Both of these got through Russian airspace into Crimea, which is highly trafficked, or not even highly trafficked. Russian airspace in Crimea should be super protected by the Russians. You shouldn't be able to, getting the missile in principle, I guess if it's a Storm Shadow, that may be how it got in. A drone shouldn't have been able to get in. They got a drone to watch it in the missile. Big deal. The experts are also saying even bigger, and I will show you the explosion in a second, even bigger than, more important than just the system being blown up, is that it took the crew with it. And apparently, Russia is running very low on operators of high-tech gear, pilots, radar operators, very low supply, very hard to replace. So that was even more important than blowing up the radar, or not the radar, but the interceptors, even though it's still a big deal. Now, hold on a second. I did send this to Callum. Here it is. Yeah. I will, oops. Okay, I'll show you guys really quick. I mean, look at that. Oops. And all the side explosions, which basically would be all the interceptor missiles. Oh, geez. Okay. We're trying to get rid of music. I wish Ukrainians would stop doing this. They always put music on stuff. And so help me God, they've got to really stop doing that. All right, when we're done with this, I'm getting a hold of my Ukrainian contacts because they do this. They put music on stuff, and it's a great way to have YouTube get pissy about your videos and potentially TikTok as well. Not helpful. Anybody who knows these guys, tell them to stop putting music on their videos. So here we go. Okay. Sorry, ignore my ring light. Look at that though, with all the extra explosions coming out from all the missiles going off. Those would be like anti-aircraft missiles. I mean, it's like a nuclear bomb going off. Hell of an explosion. Hell of an explosion. Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Malathos, for the super sticker. Oh, and then finally, several U.S. senators went to Ukraine today, met with Zelensky. Richard Blumenthal, Democrat. Lindsey Graham, Republican. Good, because Graham is very good on Ukraine. He's a big Trump suck-up. Thank you, Luder. And Obi-Wan. He's a big Trump suck-up, which is problematic because Trump is generally bad on Ukraine, but who knows? Trump could change. And Elizabeth Warren, who's a big Democrat, but that's important too because she's a liberal Democrat, and sometimes the liberal Democrats need a little, traditionally need a little nudge when it comes to supporting military action. So I think it's great that Zelensky's there, and that Lindsey Graham is there because he's just establishing more relationships with Ukrainians. And again, as I said, Elizabeth Warren matters because I think it's just good for liberal Democrats to be. Well, I don't want to say more supportive. She's been supportive, but basically to lock in her support, so to speak, right? Here we go. Sorry, the connection. Yeah, the sound went out, so I had to restart the page. You guys are fine. You guys should be fine now with sound. Yep. It's fine now. I rebooted. Hopefully it's fine on YouTube. All right. Graham may be what Graham is, but it's very helpful to have him supportive of Ukraine. So there we go. All right, guys. So yeah, let's talk more. What else is going on with all of this? So did the Wagner guy die in the plane crash? We think so, but we don't have proof, and the Russians lie. The Russian government lies a lot. Thank you, Dora. So until Western intelligence is able to basically verify it, I'd say there's a 95% chance he's dead. Is there another coup on the way? Don't know. I mean, as I was saying, I think this solidifies Putin's hold on power in some ways because he got rid of a top rival, but it also makes things a little more chaotic because he went back on a deal. He killed somebody hugely popular with the public. He killed somebody who's got 20,000 men behind him. I mean, that's a big deal too, right? I mean, there's a lot of issues there. So I'm saying like it kind of goes both ways in terms of benefiting Putin or not. Will that change anything with Poland? Well, potentially. This potentially makes things, even though Institute for Study of War, the big think tank, said that the Poles shouldn't be worried. The Wagner group in Belarus wasn't going to do anything because they couldn't. Poland would kill them. It just makes things a little better for Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia, all of which border Belarus, where the Wagner group was, at least a lot of them were located recently after the coup. So it certainly makes things a little better for them because I think this weakens the Wagner group. The question again is what happens next for the Wagner group? Is Putin getting rid of it? Honestly, by the way, if you were one of the other guys that supported the coup, I think Putin may kill them all at this point. These guys need to worry about what's next for all of them now, right? He killed the top two guys. Why wouldn't he kill the rest of them in the coup? Oh, thank you. I didn't see Malithos had a question. Thanks. Do you know what the Internet Research Agency rebranded to? No. Did it rebrand? I don't know. I'm not up on the latest with them. Sorry, Malithos. I mean, I'm assuming Bellingham was right. Exactly. He was good. Krozov. Um, I'm assuming you can find it in Wikipedia. You know, do you think the Wagner soldiers would join Ukraine? I mean, I don't think so. Well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say I don't think so because they're still Russians. Having said that, you could join Ukraine in a uniquely Russian way. You could join Ukraine and become one of those guys that invaded Russia from Ukraine, to liberate Russia. I mean, the Wagner guys could be so pissed off by this that they just want to go sow some, basically cause some hell within Russia now. Do some, for example, possibly do some terrorist operations or something like that. Thank you, Red Watts. Right? And if you were one of the Wagner guys, you might just say, screw it at this point, right? I'm going after Putin. I'm going after the regular military. I mean, you never know. They just destroyed your livelihood and destroyed your heroes in a sense. Would they go to Moscow? As Ov is saying, I mean, the only question is whether they've got the strength left to go to Moscow and whether they've been spread out, right? Are they in one location? Do they have weapons? Thank you, Jetta. I don't know if they've got the weapons. Thank you, Trilitic. Right? Because we do know that a lot of their weapons were taken away after the coup. There were a lot of reports on that. Could the accident be a way to send Prigozhin to a gulag? That's funny. I mean, why not just kill him? Right? I mean, if you're going, I guess here's my point. If you're going to tell the public that you killed him, why keep him alive privately? What benefit is there? Because you've already told the public you killed him, so there's no downside to you actually killing him because the public thinks you actually killed him, right? So that would be my only thing with that. Wagner's are gun for hire. I mean, they are, Rick. The question is, thank you, TikTok novice. The question is how much of a gun for hire, right? Would they, for example, the American mercenary groups, who were they? Black Hawk. Was it BlackRock? I'm forgetting the name. Whatever the name of those groups were. You guys know what I mean. Yeah, they'd work for almost anybody, but would they work for somebody fighting America? Really? Right? I mean, I'm not sure. Blackwater, thank you. I'm not sure about that, right? So would these guys, if you paid these guys enough money, would they attack Russian troops? You know what I mean? I don't know. Unless you get somebody, thank you, Karen, unless you get somebody like the Russian that are attacking Russia because they think Putin's bad and they're trying to do anything to sort of overthrow him. I mean, now that's true, man. The Wagner guys, these guys are certainly ripe for recruitment for a crew to take out Putin. Whether they can take him out is another question, right? But you give them a lot of money and a lot of resources. The only thing is who's going to give them that money and the resources, because they're still mercenaries. So they've got to be paid. How are they being paid? They just lost their billionaire, right? And if you're mercenary and you're not paid, are you still a mercenary? Or do you just go home and say, that's it, right? Michael says, if the Wagner troops are on the Polish border, could they storm Kaliningrad and make it Wagnerville? That's funny. That's very funny. I mean, because that's really interesting. Yeah, because Kaliningrad is the Russian territory that's like in the middle of Europe there, like northeast Poland, south of Lithuania. That's actually very funny. I like that idea, actually. You take a bunch of the problem is you'd have to get across Poland. So you'd have to have the agreement of the Poles, right? Or the Lithuanians, or probably both, to say, okay, we promise we're not going to cause any trouble. Let us just cross your territory and take over Kaliningrad. That would be pretty wild. That would be wild. BlackRock. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know all the little, I know the investment firm aren't they the investment firm BlackRock? I always forget. Or are they the advisory firm? That would be pretty funny, though. What else we got, guys? Imagine if Wagner actually stole that tactical nuke during the failed coup. That's true. Remember, at least the story is that the Wagner guys got to the door of a facility that had tactical nuclear weapons right outside of Ukraine, and they couldn't get in because it was locked and they didn't have the key. Literally, there was a key and they didn't have it, but they tried to get in. Now, in principle, they should not have been able to use the nuke because it's much more complicated than that. But still, you have to, if someone's got a nuke, you have to assume they can use it. You can't assume, well, it's really hard, so they probably can't use it, right? I mean, maybe, but what if you're wrong? then everybody dies. You know, it was a weird story, Derek. But it was the story that was out there right after the coup. I think it was even the Washington Post or something. And it was like multiple sources. Who knows? But that's what they're saying. Why was the plane? No, there's a good question. Shadeblade asked a really good question. Why was the plane shot down? According to the media, what are we hearing? And that's something that kind of blew my mind. That all the stories coming out of Russia are, oh, the plane was shot down and we're having an investigation. Thank you, Lurden Beast. All the stories are right. We're having an investigation. Well, I mean, you just shot a commercial plane out of the sky using some of your anti-aircraft missiles. In most countries, that would be a big deal. In most countries, the government would have to explain that. In most countries, it would shut down all air traffic into the capital if a plane flying out of the capital got shut down by the military for no reason, right? Only in Russia is it an afterthought that, oh yeah, and the military did shoot a plane down and they haven't given a reason, which is a little creepy, right? But I mean, because honestly, everybody knows Putin did it, which also tells you something about the nature of Putin, the nature of Russia being so lawless and being such a dictatorship. Because again, any of our countries, literally you use a military facility to blow up the plane of your political rival in midair. I mean, imagine like Biden doing that to Trump and not giving an explanation as to why, and simply saying, oh yeah, his plane got blown up. We're doing an investigation. Like, what? But only in Russia is it like, oh yeah, we're just not putting that in the story. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, the video of the plane's pretty wild because it looks like it's supposedly one wing got blown off entirely and like a stabilizer or whatever it's called. Both of those got blown off. So you had like one wing going. That video I was not going to show you guys. It's not gory, but still I worry it might violate TikTok's or YouTube's rules because it's literally a plane with 10 people going down. So, you're watching death, even though you're not watching death, Oh, this is pretty good, though. Sorry, I'm going to save this. I'm saving this one. We have a really good troll comment. Actually, you know what I forgot about? Can I? Oh, I'm afraid to even do it here. I think I can do it. I forgot that I can use my computer mouse to go back and forth. Oh, but I can't post anything in there. That's right. My mouse and my iPad, you can actually scroll. I didn't set it up this way, but my laptop, I can scroll, and if I go too far, it shows up on my iPad, which always freaks me out. Wall Street Journal saying it was shot down. I mean, it's pretty clear it was shot down. Confirmed he was on the plane, not by anybody independent. The Russians say he was on the plane, right? The Russians say they found bodies, but you can't trust the Russians on any of this. You just can't. So I'm not sure. You know what I mean? But his own people said he was on the plane. Again, one assumes they're not part of a conspiracy, but that they're actually telling the truth about it. I think it's pretty clear that he was, Transnistria has a year supply, well armed by controlling that little stash. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. The Transnistria stuff. That is true. Angel just got his wings. Sky Queen, thank you for the question, Sky Queen. What does Russia gain from keeping the assassination secret? Would it cause more fear to admit it? It's a good question. I mean, I suppose there's the problem maybe in a country that has laws, and Russia does have laws. If you admit you just shot a commercial airliner out of the sky, you might have to explain why, right? I mean, it might make it for example, I think, and I'm not the expert on dictatorships here, but dictators, I assume, still want a patina of credibility, right? Like, we're throwing all the opposition in jail because they broke the law, and the law is very important, so that you can't admit publicly, I broke the law, I just decided to shoot the guy out of the sky. That would be my guess, is somehow it's just some kind of deniability thing, even though they won't deny it, but they're not going to. Well, actually, first of all, they may not have a choice but to deny. I mean, they may not have a choice. If they literally used a Russian military weapon to shoot the guy out of the sky, you can't deny it. I mean, somebody in the military shot the guy out of the sky, right? So it's almost a joke at this point that Putin hasn't taken credit if he hasn't, right? What else we got, guys? His top deputy was on there, and then 5 other people, and then 3 flight crew. Yeah, Ali says authorities have ruled Prigozhin death a suicide. Yeah, exactly. It looks like it was a private plane. I mean, it was one of his private planes. It was one of the Wagner planes, I believe. Yeah. So, you know, the only thing is, again, we've got to see, but there are multiple reports of people thinking it was an anti-aircraft. Basically, the same. The S-300 is one of the rockets that the Russians have been using to fire into Ukraine. It's a rocket that's meant to take down aircraft, and the Russians have been using it just to blindly shoot at Ukraine and just cause damage if they can. So, if there's proof that was used, then it wasn't a bomb, right? Nicolae Ceausescu. God, I hope I don't remind you of him. One of my fondest memories is Christmas Day 1989. Are you kidding? Ceausescu and the Misses. I'm serious. I Googled it again a couple of months ago just to watch it all over again. Fondest memories of that man going away. But God, I hope I'm more attractive than he is, and younger for that matter too. What a nasty man. It is a slow map night. Because we're talking about explosion happening, sort of northwest of Moscow. There is no map. What else, guys? Any other? It was not Putin. It must be, right? The Russian trolls keep insisting it was not Putin, so it must be Putin. Well, again, also, the Russians, I believe, thank you, Karen, initially tried to blame Ukraine or something. And it's just sort of isn't it embarrassing that you're suggesting that Ukraine has such power that they can blow up? I mean, if Ukraine has such power that it can blow up commercial airplanes leaving Moscow, then no commercial airplane should ever fly out of Moscow again, if that's what they're saying. And clearly that's not what they want, but it's kind of what they're suggesting, which is interesting, Anyway, all right, guys, I think I'm going to do the roundup here. I'll do the news roundup. I don't want to sort of milk this for more than it's worth, but where the plane went down. I mean, the thing is, you've got the map. The problem is you've got Moscow probably way up. It's even hard for me to show you Moscow, like map down here. Moscow might be up here, and it's this far up from Moscow. You know what I mean? I mean, that's a very poor description using the map. But I mean, it was, up and to the left of Moscow. And Moscow, okay, Ukraine, Moscow's kind of straight up-ish, maybe a little to the left. And then you go another 20% up and to the left. That's probably the good way of describing it, right? So it's hard to show. I can't even, it's hard for me to say, well, I can show you. Hold on. It was about 100 miles northwest of Moscow. I'll show you on the, hold on. I might even be able to, Moscow, Idaho. That's so funny. Moscow, Idaho. One moment here. Let me see if I can find on the map. Although actually, we can do this. 50, 100. Oh, here we go. Here's the town. Good. I'm going to highlight. I'm going to put the little dot so you can see approximately where. Okay. This is the entire map of Ukraine. You see Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine. You see Belarus. You see Moscow. Look at the red dot northwest of Moscow. But you see all the way down below Belarus is Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital. So you can see sort of how far away it was. All right, here for you guys. So once again, you see the red dot is where it was, right northwest of Moscow. You see bottom southwest is Belarus. Right below Belarus is Ukraine. You see Kyiv, Ukraine. You see Crimea, the peninsula in the south. So you can see how far Moscow is, and then maybe another, like I said, 25% farther, maybe. Got it? It is far away. Yeah. Then again, Ukraine, I don't think I have it handy. I really hate when my phone does this. My phone just decides to change the screen. My phone on its own keeps changing the screen. Today, it's decided to put the screen of the explosion of the anti-air missile in Crimea. I didn't do that. It did it on its own. It drives me crazy. Every day it does this to me. I forgot I picked something crazy the other day that it did, but it keeps showing other stuff, and I'm like, stop it. Stop it. There, putting my dog back. Oh, it thinks it's my dog. Even worse. Okay. Crazy phone. But I don't want that. My screensaver is my dog. Like, that's my screensaver. It's my dog. It's not supposed to be. See, and then I click screensaver and it pulls up the stupid thing. I'm going to start my phone and turn it on again. Oh my God. My phone's been taken over. All right, guys. Ukraine does Ukraine have weapons that go that far? They've got drones that can go that far. I don't think they've got missiles that can go that far. I don't think so. All right, guys, let me do the quick summary of what's going on, and then we will end this. So day 545 of Putin's special 3-day military operation. Happy Ukrainian Flag Day. Tomorrow, happy Ukrainian Independence Day. Big story today is Yevgeny Prigozhin, the oligarch, the mercenary, the man who tried to overthrow Putin 2 months ago, is apparently dead after his aircraft was blown out of the sky, we think by the Russians, by Putin about 100 miles northwest of Moscow. And again, looks like he's dead. The Russians claim he is. The Russians claim they found the body. You can't trust the Russian government, so there is kind of that issue that, you got to kind of watch it. But nonetheless, looks real. I went through sort of why it's good for Putin, why it's bad for Putin, why now, why 2 months after the coup, why didn't we go longer, right? And then I talked also about Surovikin, who was the top general in, I guess, Ukraine for a while. I mean, for the Russians, and how Surovikin just got fired today as well. He was a Prigozhin friend, we believe, but he's in trouble now. Ukrainian intelligence had a big coup today with a helicopter. They got a Russian helicopter saying, basically convinced, this is a fabulous story. It just shows how bad the Russians are. They got a Russian helicopter pilot to turn in his helicopter to the Ukrainians, fly it to Ukraine, 100 miles inside Ukraine, military base, turn it over. According to one of you, you said the story says they gave him $500,000. I didn't see that, but I'm not sure. Clearly, they would have given him a reward. Snuck his family out of Russia to safety, and he killed 2 of his crewmen who were on the helicopter with him, and turned the helicopter over to the Ukrainians, who are now going to use it. Wild story. Also wild story, Ukraine blew up a hugely expensive and important S-400 anti-air battery in Crimea, used to shoot down, missiles and planes coming in, things like this. And there's some fabulous video I showed of showing the explosion, really wild. And finally, 3 U.S. senators, 2 Democrats, 1 Republican, showed up in Kyiv today to meet with Zelensky. Very good news, because we need to sort of keep that kind of diplomacy going, which is great. So Dark Iris has a super chat question I will answer, or maybe a comment. John, appreciate for everything you do, keeping us up, especially these days. Still need to smile once in a while. Am I not smiling? I thought I was smiling. Oops, I dropped my phone under your map. Can you please pick it up again? Here's the map. I know. There you go. Here's your map. Very happy. Thank you for that, Dark Irish. I appreciate that. All right, guys. I'm gonna go find some food. It's funny. It doesn't matter when I eat. I get hungry after the show. I think because it's so much like boom. Thank you, Hazel. But I'm hungry again now. I'm gonna go tomorrow. We've got the show again at 6 p.m. Eastern time, US. I will also do more video updates, as time goes on of what's going on with Wagner. My suspicion is we're going to talk about more fallout from Wagner tomorrow and everything else. I know I'm gonna buy more of the t-shirt maps when I get back to DC, and then we'll be selling them. Yep. Don't worry about that. I will definitely be doing that. I did the, thank you, Elizabeth. I did promote the memberships earlier, Keps. I didn't promote the auctions because today is the day that the auctions are actually finishing. So I don't promote the auctions today because they finish. Tomorrow, I should have a bunch of new auction items up over at our Discord. Remember, the auction items, as I always say, 50% of the auction revenue goes right back to Ukraine. 50% supports my work. For YouTube, you can become a member. In principle, I believe you click the $ down by the comments, and you should see super chat pop up, super question, or super chat, super stickers, and memberships or subscriptions. It's called one of those, membership or subscription. And that's how you would sign up on YouTube. Try it. There's no commitment. On YouTube, just click the button. Now, so I don't know if somebody was saying on an iPhone you can't do it the other day or something stupid like that, which makes no sense, but I think is true, right? You guys might not be able to. Thank you, the rest of you. can I ship to Canada? Well, once I do the shirts, the auction items, yeah, we ship them all over the world. It's just you pay shipping. So that's the only risk. Thank you, Don. But we've got a number of Canadians, Australians. Australia is expensive. A lot of Europeans buy the auction stuff. So yeah. I'll ship anywhere as long as you pay shipping. So it's not a problem. Yep. Start selling used cars. I hate cars though. I'm not a car guy. All right, guys. I'll buy more of the shirts. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. All right, guys. I'm gonna get going. I'm gonna go find some dinner. But thank you all. I will Estonia. Well, it might just be shipping to the problem is shipping to Europe is an $18 base price. So anything we ship that has tracking, which is actually anything we ship, any packages, not letters, any packages are $18 minimum. That's just what they are. And then it goes up depending on the weight. So yeah, it's not cheap to Europe, unfortunately, because that's what it is. But anyway, all right, guys, have a good night. I'll see you all tomorrow. Why do I speak so fast? Ask my mother. It's just the way because my head goes too fast. It's, what do you do? All right, guys, have a good night. See you, Callum. Burp.